Okay, we are ready to put our composite piece all together. So I've got all my elements opened and ready to go. I'm going to start with this foreground piece, and we're going to start working on our background and just dragging pieces over. I sized this in DAD, so it's already the size I need. One of the things about this piece, it's a billboard piece, so even though it was lit in DADs with everything else, it's actually from a photograph, and these mountains are being lit from the top right. So we have shadow here on the left, which is opposite from the way I lit my scene. So I am going to flip this horizontally. We are done with that piece. This is a sky I shot myself. So it's my own photograph. And I'm going to use this in our background. I'm going to create a piece under here more as a placeholder, not probably actually going to use it for anything. Again, this piece is, this image, the light is coming from the right, and I need the light to be coming from the left, so I'm going to flip this horizontally also. And I want my clouds a little smaller. For depth of field, we're going to create a blur here. This creates depth in your image. And we're going to have a lot of blur. I'm going to repeat that same amount of blur here on my sky. I'm going to duplicate my foreground layer and create a layer mask. I'm going to add a little bit of blur to that, not as much because it's closer to the camera. It's blurring my layer mask. There we go. And then I'm going to put this on gradient. I want this gradient selected where it'll create a solid band in the middle and then blur out on each side. I'm going to hold my shift key, and I'm just going to put where my focal spot, my focal plane is. And I'm going to do it on my layer map, on my masking layer, not on my image itself. Okay, I'm just making sure. So Laura's going to be standing in this area right here. That's our main character, and this is where our main area of focus is going to be. And so that's left a little bit of blur in the foreground and a little bit of blur in the background. I'm going to merge these two layers. I don't like this weird gray area we have right here. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to clip it. Use my brush tool. I think I'll grab this really light here. Bring that in like that. Characters are going to be here, so it doesn't really matter what's in the happening here. I want to grab maybe like that color. And then let's blur these a little bit. And again, it doesn't really matter that that's a real line there because there's going to be people standing there. That looks better. Okay, I think we're ready to start bringing our characters in. We can get rid of this. I just did a stamp, which it takes all these layers and merges them and copies them onto a new layer. And I'm just going to grab these. And let's not clip to our, bring these in. Now we can get rid of slave. The only thing I did on the dragon was I didn't like this eye here on the left, so I copy and pasted this eye, flipped it around, and gave her a new eye. Rin's a female. And she's going to be behind everybody else. And we'll grab Laura. So I haven't really done a whole lot of anything. I started to record and like the first 2 minutes realized that my speaker was on mute, so I went back. So that's why that first part went so fast. I already knew what I was doing, but mostly I haven't really done any of this. I never know what I'm doing until I get in and start playing with an image. So I might do things and change my mind and go back. So this video might get a little long. I'll split it into parts if I need to, but hopefully you'll learn some techniques along the way. So I think the first thing I want to do is I want Laura to pop from these other characters, and later we'll add some blur a tiny bit because they do go further back on the focal plane, but I'll do that towards the end once I get their edits done. But I want her to pop more in contrast too, because that also adds focal interest. So I'm going to add a levels adjustment. I want to be kind of careful because I do a lot of edits at the end that will also bring a lot of focus to her face. Like I'll do a vignette and stuff like that, which will lighten her up. So I want to be careful not to get too light. When I'm doing this, I still want to keep her slightly underexposed. But I just want to bring her up a little bit. Yeah, I think that works. The next thing I want to do with her is I need to decide if I'm happy with my placements here. I like where she is. I might move Slade a little bit. And I think I'm fairly happy with Rin. Okay. So the other thing I want to do with Laura, I'm going to make a new layer and blank this one out. I'm going to put her in a group because we're going to start getting a lot of layers going. And I want to keep her layers together so I know what goes with her. And I want to ground her, and grounding is making her look like she's attached to the background. She would not be floating in the air here above the snow. She would be sank down into the snow. So that's what we're going to give that look now. I'm going to go into my brushes, and I want a messy, kind of grungy looking brush. And this is about as far as I got. So I know, before I realized my speaker was off, so I know I used this sort of brush. And it was working very well. And I want to go into my brush adjustments. I want to turn on scattering, size jitter, angle jitter, some scattering. Just so the shape varies as it goes. I'm going to create a new layer on top of this and clip it. And I'm just going to go along the edge of her dress here. And we're going to go back. Because that's not what I want to do. I told you I might make some mistakes here. I want to do this on a clipping mask of Laura, because I actually want the snow underneath her showing through. I don't want to paint over the top. I want the textures to come through also. I want a little more jitter on this. Of course, this worked so much nicer the first time I did it. I'm not sure I have the exact same brush, but I know it was one of these. Just want the appearance of her, she's standing in the snow here. And I like the way the way it's going so far. Now I'm going to create another layer. Create a clipping mask. And I've got Ron's Snow and Frost. Ron's Magical Snow is loaded, and also Ron's Frost brushes. So I think we're going to try some of these frost brushes. I'd really see if I can get this to work. Let's try, before we try a paintbrush, let's pick one of these. Come down here and just, so I get, what I'm going to try and do is take this snow texture as, in the stamping tool, make sure I'm back on this layer, and I'm going to try and stamp that onto her dress. And it's not really working well. Let's see what it does if I paint. Oh, let's try this. Kind of like that. We can always lower the opacity if we need to. See, look how nice it's looking, and it's not. It's it's just not very bright. Well, let's, I did a Control J, which just repeats that image. Now I'm gonna merge these 3 images together. Yeah. And then I might bring some up, create another layer. I'm going to turn this brush so it goes more along the side or runs along her leg like this. I'm thinking about right there. And then I'm going to repeat this layer, Control J. I saw it go on there, but I'm not seeing anything now. Okay. Clip that on. I can see the snow level. This would help. My clipping. Usually this is defaulted to 100, but I must have used it in another project and had it down too low. Okay, I don't like this one. I like how it looks before it gets there, but I don't like how it looks after. Let's try another. Just giving me some little spots. I'm going to add. It's really hard to tell what these brushes do. They kind of change each time you put them on. It's a little too much lines there, maybe. That's not bad. Yeah, I kind of like that. We've kind of got Laura looking like she's down in our snow. Let me turn my brush back. I want to go along this bottom edge right here a little bit. Actually, I liked it better without it. Okay, we may come back to that. I'll stop fiddling with it for now, and I will use the same method to ground Slade. Give him a layer mask. First, I go back up to this messy, kind of grungy looking brush. we're still cloning. I need to get back in my brush. I'm going to go back to these frost brushes and grab this one again. I'm going to use it as a layer mask this time. We're going to bury Slade's feet in the snow. He's a fairly heavy guy, so I want him pretty buried. He would probably sink down more than Laura would in the snow. I just saw something kind of interesting, but I lost it already. I'm going to go ahead and I think just use a small soft brush just to make sure this edge is like completely gone and really bury him down in there. Honestly, I'm thinking about really burying him in. I'm working on a layer mask so I can bring back any of it. If I go carried away, I can just delete the layer mask and start all over if I need to. Let's see what this does. It's a little too much on that back leg, but I do like the effect. There we go. I need my opacity down. It's just too bright. Kind of want the effect of like snow splattered up on its pant legs. That looks pretty good. Now you see if I move him, wherever I move him to, he still looks like he is buried in the snow.